the brain burns more energy than any other part of our body. And when there's research, studies and research and so much out there on when we have to make a series of difficult decisions, our decision making capability actually degrades, and our likelihood of making decisions that we will not be happy with later actually goes up. Let me give you an example. So if somebody gets up in the morning and they're in a place where they want to be in better shape, and so they're eating nothing but healthy foods, then getting up in the morning first thing, you're probably not going to be challenged by, I need to go get a cheeseburger. But if you get up in the morning and there's challenges with the kids and you're making decisions on how to deal with them, and you don't have a morning routine, so the morning's haphazard and you're throwing things together, you're leaving the house late for the fifth time in a 5-day week, you get your kids to school late, you get to work late, you're behind on things, and all day you're in this constant treading water. By the time 3:30 rolls around and you're out on a sales call or you're out doing something and you pass the fast food place, your brain is going to make it a lot easier for you to go do something that you're not going to be happy with later. And so the more that we set ourselves up for success in advance, the more that we eliminate that decision-making fatigue by creating a process through which we support ourselves, we'll make more consistently good decisions. And I think a lot of people, I know a lot of people say things like, oh, I just have a hard time keeping in shape, or I have a hard time not eating these foods. Or, I think for a lot of the time it's, well, here's what's happened. You're allowing your decision-making capacity to be burned out so quickly that your mind is in a place where it's just looking for pleasure. It gives up discipline. It gives up any type of outcomes that you have. And it says, how do I just feel better right now?
Mm.
And so when we understand that decision-making fatigue is a real thing, and when we know, or when we allow for that understanding to drive us to say, okay, how do I eliminate the decisions in the morning? I'm going to put together a morning routine. I'm going to get up in the morning, do the same things that I know will support me. And by the way, I think it's also become cool in the entrepreneur world to say, you don't need a morning routine, or you don't need to have a routine. You need to be in flow. You need to be doing this. The fact is like, flow doesn't happen in most people's lives unless they have a process to get there, unless they actually clear out the noise and the pressure to get there. And so I think, it might not be the sexiest answer, but man, in my experience, when I've been able to work with people and have had them put together a morning routine, simple, like write it down and go through the checklist, and they've eliminated decision-making in advance, suddenly all the stuff in their business gets easier, and they start making way more progress in the things that are really important to them, and they start making better decisions.
That is so true. Do you think, why is it becoming cool? I didn't know that it was even cool to not have, because I always thought flow is generated in a way.
100%.
And that's what, if
it's
you
set up.
Yeah. And if you listen to anyone or watch anyone that is a high performer who's in a state of flow, or seems like they must be in a state of flow, they have everything set almost like it's rhythmic. It's like, yep, this is what I do. Then and then around this time is when I say, all right, I'm done.
Yeah.
And then it is open to whatever happens. But I've already gotten my thing done.
Yeah.
My flow is already taken care of, especially with writers. At least all the successful writers are just amazed at how scheduled they are. They're like, I wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning and I write for these many hours. My coffee is ready. This is ready.
Yeah.
And I go for until this time. Then I take a walk or have my lunch, and then I come back and I do da. And then after that, every email or whatever else is there in the world is after like 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock. Something when their day is kind of done, but world is still catching up to them. So it's where is that coming from, according to you, this new narrative?
I don't know, Ajit. I think it's very similar to the narrative that you should just get up and work every day. Like, don't even think about anything, just go straight to your desk. I think
the hustle culture.
But it's almost like this heroic hustle culture. I can work harder than you. I can work longer than you. I don't need any support. I can do it on my own. That there's like this badge of honor that a lot of entrepreneurs have to, like, I don't do any of that stuff, and I've still created this massive level of success. And
financial success, mostly. It is not really success.
100%. And a lot of the time it is financial success.
Yeah.
And it's financial success that what you're not seeing on the other side of that equation, and I've seen, because I'm in the room, I've had the conversations with people of like, I have $10 million in the bank and I feel the same as when I didn't have any money. And I don't feel like I've really changed things in my life at all. And I'm still running every day, and I'm still frustrated every day. I'm still angry every day. And I think that a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we look for excuses to validate the way we're behaving and to make it okay the way we're behaving. And I think being caught up in that constant state of hustle is an adrenaline addiction that a lot of people have that they don't want to face and say, like, why am I doing it this way? Why am I beating myself up on a daily basis? Why do I feel like I have to create all this massive pressure for myself? And so I think that there's a lot of really well-known people out there who have become well-known by demonstrating day to day that hustle culture on social media and in videos that they do. And like, I work all day, every day. I have 16-hour days, 5 days this week. I'm not saying that sometimes you don't have to do that as an entrepreneur, but when that becomes a lifestyle, there's a reason. You're avoiding something. You're masking what is really going on for you in this, I'm going to focus on something else all day, every day. I hesitate to say this because it's a long discussion to get into, but for a lot of those entrepreneurs, there have been traumatic events in their lives that they are masking through myopic focus and through overwhelming themselves on a daily basis. And to the incoming entrepreneur who's like, how do I get this done? It looks cool. It's like, hey, they can do it. I can do it too.
It's the hero story. It's
yeah.
like the hero, the savior. I want to be like the hero and the savior without understanding what it actually means.
I mean, I got caught up in it when I was in my 20s. I ran a manufacturer's rep firm. I was always the youngest kid in the room, or youngest person in the room. We were very, very successful, but I had read an article that said Bill Gates, in order to build Microsoft, had never taken a day off in his 20s. And it's funny that these days people don't even like associate Bill Gates with Microsoft, but this was back in when I was coming up. And Gates was one of those entrepreneurial icons because in his early 20s, he was running this massive company called Microsoft. And I read this article that said he never took a day off in his 20s. He worked 7 days a week, never took a day off. That was the discipline that it took to build this multi-billion-dollar multinational company. And I remember reading it and thinking, oh, that's how you do it. And so I did the same thing. And by the time I was in my early 30s, I was almost 300 pounds. I had a bleeding ulcer. Now they call it Crohn's or colitis or IBS or something like that. But back then it was called a bleeding ulcer. I was on 3 or 4 different medications. I was in a place of reactivity and lack of sensitivity that was just completely over the top. And a lot of that was due to me not really understanding that I was being driven by a lot of circumstances that were earlier in my life. I was traumatized when I was a kid. I was bullied. I was always the odd man out. And so as soon as I got into business and I found a place where like, hey, I can actually succeed, I was going to succeed no matter what. And I would sacrifice everything in order to be able to be the guy in the room who had the highest sales or who got the award or who got the new contract. And once I realized where a lot of that stuff was coming from, I started going to EMDR therapy. I got into a lot better shape. I had fears of, if I do these things, am I going to lose my edge? And here's what really happened was I did those things and my motivation came from a different place. And rather than losing my edge, I created success on an entirely different level than I had before. I think a lot of times people say, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I'm just going to do everything that it takes to run this business and nothing else. But if you're not getting up in the morning and taking care of yourself, if you're not taking walks, if you're not meditating, and I know that like meditation is almost a bad word in the entrepreneurial space because everybody's like, I can't. It just means sitting there for a few minutes with your eyes closed, breathing and letting your brain process. It doesn't mean that it has to be blank. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you sit there and your mind is racing, that's exactly what it needs to be doing. If you're, how doing those things is going to help you increase the ability to see what you really want to do. And my pointer would be to avoid this hustle and succeed at all costs dogma and environment that's out there. Protect yourself, protect your sensitivity. Don't lean into this, I need to sacrifice everything. Will there be sacrifices? Of course there will. But the more you take care of yourself, the more you lower the pressure and noise in your life, the unnecessary pressure and noise, you'll be able to do the things that you need to do to actually be successful.